It's Sierra, new ambassador for WW, Weight Watchers Reimagined. The new My WW Plus, our most holistic program ever, helps you tackle the many elements that contribute to weight loss with tools to plan meals and get you moving.
Join today with a limited time offer at WW.com.
Hey guys, it's time for this week's episode of the Inside Line Formula One podcast. Welcome guys. So Kunal, I refuse to speak about the Singapore Grand Prix this time. It was just so boring. I don't think we should waste any more time on that.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Inside Line F1 podcast, guys. And Mithila, this is exactly where I see a business opportunity for us. So if the Singapore Grand Prix was boring, can the Inside Line F1 podcast episode that talks about the Singapore Grand Prix actually be interesting?
Well, Kunal, I think all our episodes are interesting. You know, Grand Prix is interesting or not, never mind.
Well, and if you still don't wish to speak about the Singapore Grand Prix, we're going to let Ashley speak about the race. So, yes, for those of you who remember, Ashley is a really young Formula One fan from Australia. She was on our show after the Australian Grand Prix this year, and now she's back on our show after seeing the Singapore Grand Prix in Singapore.
Fantastic. And you know what I really love about Ashley is that she wants to have her own podcast when she grows older. And Kunal, I really hope that she has us on her podcast as old guests. I don't know.
Bernie Ecclestone age guest by then.
We're not that old, okay?
But till such time Ashley gets her own podcast, we are very pleased to have her on our show. So stay tuned to hear Ashley's experiences from the Marina Bay circuit. We're going to play it a little later in the show.
Yes, and Kunal, absolutely. When Ashley gets her own podcast, you should speak to your friends at Hubhopper and get her podcast listed there too. Yeah.
Oh yes, so Hubhopper is India's own podcast app. And I'm sure it works in Australia as well. It has thousands of unique shows and episodes from every imaginable genre. So remember to download, use, review, and share Hubhopper. It goes like HUBHOPPER on iTunes and the Google Play Store.
Awesome. And you know, Kunal, I really must say I love the listeners and the Formula One fans we have in Australia. So there's Ashley, of course, and then there's Lucian, and I think you guys all know him. He does the Moments in Time section on our show.
Apart from the opening and closing tunes.
Yeah, and we also have Hafiz, Zainab and Zeenat sending us all their love from Sydney. Hi guys!
It's actually going to be a big union when we visit the Australian Grand Prix, and that is when we visit one.
Yes. Till then, guys, in this week's episode, we have just so much to talk about.
And we, of course, have the What Toto Wolff Said This Week section. We are back with that. Like you know, we also have Ashley. We are going to speak about Mick Schumacher and why Red Bull is almost already in touch with him, although they're going to say no to it. So there's a lot in store. Remember to just stay tuned. We will entertain you right along the way. But Mithila, I know you don't wish to speak about the Singapore Grand Prix, but I will still share one point, and I'm going to say one point and share many like I do. But first, the race was more about tire management. But it seemed to me that Mercedes were better off in managing their tires for a change, because remember that in the earlier races in the season, it was actually Ferrari that managed their tires better than Mercedes.
Yes, and this is also why Vettel's gamble on the Ultra Softs just didn't work. I think he just couldn't unlock any pace. And Kunal, you know, now it means that Vettel is 40 points down and he needs to basically win all of the remaining 6 races to win the title, or to have a chance at winning the title, I would say.
And Christian Horner is the last man standing in support of his blue-eyed boy, Sebastian Vettel, and Vettel's championship challenge. So, you know, when Horner was asked about Vettel's title chances for this year, he reminded everyone of the win back in 2012. Now,
yeah, at least Vettel has some fans, you know, on the grid, if not in Ferrari, in some other teams maybe. But, you know, guys, listen, everything is not lost. I know a lot of y'all are disappointed because y'all were hoping for a closer battle. But there is some time before we have one clear winner. Though, of course, Lewis Hamilton seems super comfortable.
Yes, and I keep reading on fan groups that how people are wishing for a DNF for Lewis Hamilton. And I just want to repeat one thing, that I would love for the best driver to win. And to me, the best driver in 2018 has been Lewis Hamilton without a doubt. And please remember, I am not taking sides. I'm only stating the facts, and all I want is a fair fight.
Yeah, and after winning in Singapore, Hamilton said that he wants Verstappen to join the title fight next year. So I think clearly Hamilton wants a new challenger. Maybe he's missing Nico Rosberg a little bit.
And who knows, it could well be Charles Leclerc challenging Hamilton for the Drivers' Championship next year. Wow, that will be fun.
That would be really great.
Yeah, but Formula One is talking about introducing more standardized parts in the time to come. And hopefully this will mean that a few more cars will be competitive enough to challenge for wins. I mean, I'm really missing that time when a midfield team had like the outside chance to win a race.
I am sure that the teams will refuse such rules. But I read that teams didn't pay taxes on the money they earned. And honestly, how would they? Because in Formula One, the teams participate to win, not to make profit. And obviously, taxes are paid on profits made.
And talking of teams, there are still 5 teams that haven't announced the driver lineup for 2019. Force India, Williams, Haas, Toro Rosso, and Sauber. And of course, Force India and Sauber just have one driver each to confirm, and this is even though Force India hasn't confirmed Lance Stroll for next year.
I think Toro Rosso's choices are going to be most interesting. So I read that Pascal Wehrlein is definitely being considered by them.
And I read that Danny Kivat has signed his contract to return to the Red Bull Racing stables, and an official announcement is just around the corner.
I still feel that Robert Kubica would be the best fit, Kunal, for Red Bull Racing, given their whole gives you wings platform. It would be just such an amazing story and such great PR.
Come
Fingers
on, Helmet.
crossed.
Come on, Helmet, just do it.
I
Just
know,
get
right?
Robert
What a
Kubica
dream.
that car.
And look at it this way. They've given such a long rope to both Kivat and Hartley, and a season with Kubica, just a season. That's enough for enough PR.
And enough for Kubica to also showcase
Prove
his
himself.
potential, and a driver of his caliber. Well, all we can say is fingers crossed.
And if it happens, we called it first. Like dibs on that.
So I'm going to go back to talking about Pascal Wehrlein. It was announced a few days ago that he would leave the Mercedes junior driver program. And it's actually nice of Mercedes to let go of their junior driver talent, if that tag is being an obstacle in growing in the Formula One paddock.
But I also know that Toto Wolff said that Mercedes would not release Esteban Ocon in a million years. Very emphatic.
And I was actually speaking to one of Norway's biggest Formula One fans. His name is Henrik. He's a friend of ours also. And he actually said that if Mercedes let go of Ocon, Red Bull Racing should grab this opportunity to have Ocon on their program. And for Ocon, it would mean going from working with one Austrian to another. But, Mercedes has drivers, that's how I see it, but it doesn't have seats in Formula One to help those drivers. Whereas Red Bull Racing right now has the seats, but do not have the drivers.
That's a good point. It's no wonder then that Christian Horner suggested that Toto Wolff should use his checkbook to save Esteban Ocon's Formula One career. I hope something really happens. But honestly, if you think of it this way, Ferrari has beaten Mercedes and Red Bull Racing in this entire political game, because Ferrari have their drivers and their network of teams, importantly, to give them seats in, right from Sauber upwards.
Yes, I actually remember reading that Kimi Raikkonen did his deal with Sauber all by himself. And frankly, I somewhat doubt that. I'm sure that Ferrari were in the know of things, given how close Sauber and Ferrari are working.
But give Kimi Raikkonen also some credit, he's stealth like that. But I just want to go back and talk about Red Bull Racing's junior driver program. So there were rumors that Mick Schumacher was being considered as an option for the Toro Rosso seat in 2019. And then Helmut Marko went and declined this interest.
And this is exactly why we believe that Red Bull Racing is definitely talking to Mick Schumacher. And trust Helmut Marko to not give away any of his future plans. And like I have said before, there is definitely a race, or there is definitely going to be a race between Ferrari, Mercedes and Red Bull Racing to sign up Mick Schumacher.
Ferrari also said that the door is always open for Mick to join their team. And I'm surprised that Toto Wolff hasn't said much yet, given how much he always talks about everything in the world.
And guys, irrespective of whichever team Mick Schumacher races for in Formula 1 or next year in Formula 2, depending wherever he goes, we will definitely try and figure a way to get him on the Inside Line Formula 1 podcast.
Basically, we're going to kidnap him and then force him to speak.
Well, that's Mithila talking, not me.
Yeah, just kidding. But, since we're talking about Formula 3, so Marcus Ericsson's brother and Pastor Maldonado's cousin are also racing in the British Championship. So, some famous last names to look out for.
Okay, so up next in my notepad is news from Jean Todt. He said that he doesn't expect new teams to join Formula 1 in 2020, which is exactly opposite of what Ross Brawn said. I mean, I remember Brawn saying that the success metric of the new regulations would be new teams joining Formula 1. So a rare moment when FOM and FIA aren't singing the same tune. But I must say that in this Liberty Media era of Formula 1, there has otherwise been a very unified vision for the sport that both the organizations have, time and again shared with us.
Jean Todt also spoke about a universal engine formula, and this will basically allow manufacturers to use the same engines across various series. And Kunal, I think this makes sense, in terms of the sporting and the commercial aspects.
Yes.
But best of all, so Jean Todt said that he would like to see the calendar expand to 23 races.
Now,
Guys,
this is exactly
yes.
why I love Jean Todt.
Like some fewer Sunday plans to make, because Formula 1 will entertain us.
And honestly, I have no Sunday plans. And let me tell you, ever since I've gone back to working on Formula 1, a 21 race calendar already feels just so loaded. And mind you, I'm not complaining. I am just stating a fact that it is really strenuous.
I think the only thing I've been complaining about this season in Formula 1 is the Singapore Grand Prix. Sorry guys, y'all had to suffer.
And Jean Todt said that Formula 1 will not go all electric. Now, this is something, again, Ross Brawn said could happen in the future if the environment, so-called, asks for it. So, honestly, I think Todt has vested interests in Formula E, like we already know. So, he will want to make sure that Formula 1 and Formula E don't necessarily clash at the moment. Okay?
Yeah, oh my god, this reminds me. So, Formula E has approached Fernando Alonso to join their series next season. That's the 2019 to 20 season. Basically, everyone wants Alonso.
But first things first, I've said this before.
Except Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes. Sorry, couldn't resist.
I'm going to read out a list of manufacturers since you said that. But first things first, I think Formula E really needs to rename their seasons to something like Season 1, Season 2, Season whatever. And I know it'll eventually go to Season 60 and Season 65 if it stays as long as Formula 1. But I just can't get over this whole Season 19, 20 and 2020. It's so weird to remember and keep talking about all the time. But anyway, apart from the nomenclature, I think that Alonso should definitely join Formula E. Because, he has said that he wants to go racing. He wants to have a chance to keep fighting. And I think Formula E has some really good battles all through the grid.
Yeah, and even if Alonso doesn't win all the E-Prix, he's definitely going to win the fan boost for every E-Prix given his popularity. So he'll be winning something,
Yes, on that note, Singapore showed Fernando Alonso's class yet again. And I am definitely going to miss his talent on the grid next year. But since you mentioned all the major car manufacturers, it's so strange. I'm surprised how Alonso has pissed off Ferrari, Mercedes, Renault and Honda. And now suddenly we're reading reports that even his participation in the IndyCar series could be under question. And that's because, Honda doesn't want to supply him an engine or whatever of that sort. So, which could mean that Fernando Alonso could be racing in NASCAR.
It's so strange, Kunal, because everyone wants him, but no one wants him, It's such a catch-22.
But we want him on the Inside Line F1 podcast.
We want you, Fernando. But I'll tell you what. So IndyCar will be racing at the Circuit of the Americas next season, and they're going to use the Formula 1 configuration. which means that we will actually get an outright speed comparison between the two series. I am excited.
Yes, I mean, can you imagine? It's going to be so much fun to just be able to compare everything, and I'm sure all the geeks and nerds are going to be out trying to track all the possible information they can. But since we're talking of IndyCar, congratulations to Scott Dixon for his 5th championship win. And honestly, for more IndyCar conversations, you guys should just definitely check out Off Track. It's a podcast by Hinch and Rossi, the two famous drivers from the IndyCar series itself.
Yeah, Kunal, I've been itching to ask you, what do you think of the 2021 concepts, the Formula One released ones?
Well, first things first, I'm surprised at how the concepts got leaked, because instead of them being officially announced and released by Formula One and making this a big PR opportunity, they missed all of it. So it was eventually a release on social media or a leak on social media that forced, Ross Brawn to come out and speak about it. And second thing, I think that I would go with Concept 3. It looks futuristic, it looks really cool, but guess what? I think that Formula E is already using Concept 3 starting this season. So
yeah, I know. The Formula E Gen 2 and Formula 1's, Concept 3, they just look so similar. It's crazy. Only that Formula E is 3 years ahead of the curve? But Kunal...
and several years ahead on technology, but...
Yes, if Fernando Alonso needed some reasons. But Kunal, did you notice that the old Formula One logo was present on the images that were released by Formula One?
Well, why am I not surprised? Maybe it reached Bernie in some way and he just put the old logo on there or something. But I must tell you that when I saw the concept cars, a lot of those cars also looked like the A1 Grand Prix car from a few years ago. And I remember that these cars were particularly in the year when A1 Grand Prix shut down. And they were an all Ferrari designed field. And I'm sure that, no driver on the current Formula One grid would mind an all Ferrari standardized car for the next season or whenever the concepts go live. So...
yeah, and on Ferrari, so if they've let Danny Kivat go, there are reports that Stoffel Vandoorne could actually join them as a third driver for 2019. And this, opens up a chance for him to join Haas in 2020 or something. Long shot, but still, I think he'd take something over nothing.
I think it's a really long shot. But let's see. You never know. We'll see. I'll do what, Esteban Ocon says pretty much every interview. We'll see.
But I really loved Pierre Gasly and Stoffel Vandoorne's mustache game on Twitter. And I hope you guys retweeted Gasly's tweet. Hilarious stuff.
Well, I did because, it doesn't seem like Stoffel Vandoorne is having too much fun in Formula One these days. So let's just make him have some fun, guys. So remember, go back and tweet Pierre Gasly's tweet if you haven't already done so.
And Stoffel, you're invited on our podcast as well. We promise you lots of fun.
With or without the moustache. So no pressure. And so my notes now read Perez and McLaren, which means that, at first we had McLaren and Perez say that they were interested say that they were talking to each other for 2019. And then we had Perez say that it was McLaren that was interested in his services and not the other way around. Okay, so bit strange but not surprised. But from Singapore, I was actually shocked at Sergio Perez's move on Esteban Ocon. And we've all seen the replays. Perez was at fault. He thought it would be like a harmless nudge, but it turned out to be a disaster for him and Force India and, of course, for Esteban Ocon as well. And Mithila, now I know you're a Checo fan, but what did you think of his actions in Singapore? Because he had a run-in with Sergio Sirotkin as well.
Well, Kunal, I'll tell you what, I would rather just talk about Sirotkin. He scored a point a few races ago and he raced really well in Singapore. His defenses were spot on and very good job.
You're well trained in your PR. You're just ignoring the question.
Learning from the best and Kimi Raikkonen.
And I must say, yes, Singapore helped expose Sirotkin's otherwise not so exposed talent. And of course, we got to see the inability for Formula One cars to overtake each other yet again. But I also wonder, what was it with Max Verstappen's complaints or incessant complaints about the Renault engine? Because it honestly seemed like Red Bull had made it a point to talk down Renault's engine all through the weekend. And if you guys don't believe me, go hear Verstappen's qualifying and post-race interviews, and all he does is talk negative about the Renault's C-spec engine. Disappointing.
I think I read something like he said that the new engine works like a handbrake.
And I read that Honda are debuting a new spec of their engine next race onwards or some point, and that this engine is actually going to be more powerful than Renault's C-spec engine.
Basically, this means that this season, McLaren have the worst chassis and the slowest engine. Again!
But last year, McLaren had the best chassis and the worst engine in their own admission. So let's see where it all goes for McLaren.
But I think for the first time in many, many years, McLaren have finally admitted to building a poor car. Now that is progress, finally.
But for all the money McLaren makes from Formula One, I can't imagine how they have such a poor car. And imagine this. So Force India were a poor team with a really good car. And McLaren are a rich team with a really poor car. So, well, there you go.
Yeah.
But also in the case of Force India, they were a poor team. And now they're back to being rich because we know all the billions that have flowed in. And I still don't know what their new shareholding patterns are. But did you know that Vijay Mallya is still retweeting almost all of Racing Point Force India's tweets?
Oh God, Kunal, trust you to track these things.
Of course.
And okay, guys, before we play Ashley's segment, here are some thoughts on the Miami Grand Prix. So it seems that the city won't be hosting a Grand Prix, but it could host like a mini race. And I have no idea what that means, but okay. And I mean, I'm just wondering, does it mean that they run like half distance? Or do they just run the entire Grand Prix weekend in one day? Or I have no idea. I'm not going to guess.
Or
anymore.
is it something like a little more like a Formula One live event that we had in Milan? Or does a mini race mean that, they award teams and drivers just half the points? I mean, I don't know, but I am eager to know what Formula One is going to do to make sure Miami joins the list of all the host cities. And talking of that, Turkey is now eager to host Formula One again. So they are in talks with Liberty Media to host Formula One. And I know that there was a rally in Turkey not too long back. And frankly, I would love for the Turkish international circuit to be back on the calendar. And of course, for personal reasons, it was my first ever Grand Prix that I visited as a Force India employee. And it was also the first time I met the great Michael Schumacher. So, like one of my best life memories.
Great. So guys, we're not going to keep this from you any longer. We now have Ashley with us on the Inside Line Formula One podcast. And she describes her memories from the 2018 Singapore Grand Prix. And guys, after her segment, we're going to have this week's What Toro Wolf Said This Week section.
Wow.
And mind you, Toro Wolf has said a bit too much as usual. So guys, please stay tuned.
Hello, it's Ashley from Australia and I'm so glad to be back. It was my first time at the Singapore GP and it was amazing. The grandstand I was in, Connor, was fantastic. You could see all the drivers come down a straight then into turn 14. The whole setup of Singapore is great, with the food, music, concerts, F1 and more. The fireworks at the end of the Grand Prix were incredible, with colours in every direction. Lewis was amazing throughout the whole weekend with a smashing lap at qualifying and just a fantastic race. He took off with a great start and his skill just keeps expanding every race. Max Verstappen had a clean, smart race and came in second to Lewis. He came close to Lewis at one stage due to back markers, but Lewis pulled away again. Sebastian Vettel had an okay race but couldn't catch up to Lewis. Lewis is winning in the championship with Vettel in second. Vettel every week has to work twice as hard to catch up to Lewis. My favourite driver, Alonso, did fantastically at the Singapore Grand Prix and came in 7th. A nice clean race from start to end and his strategy was really good. He didn't pit till the end of the race. Leclerc pitted at the same time so he stayed in the same position and had a great place at the end. Unfortunately though, that is the last time Alonso will race in Singapore in F1. Next year he is leaving. I don't know who I'll follow now. McLaren's new drivers are Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc is moving as well to Ferrari, and Kimi Raikkonen is going to Sauber. I had so much fun in Singapore, and I hope next year will be just as good. I can't wait for the rest of the season and 2019. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. It's a delight to hear your experiences. Also, hats off to Ashley's father, Jeff, for fueling his daughter's Formula One aspirations and ambitions. And you can follow Ashley on Twitter. Her handle is ashb_F1.
Great. So now on to the What Toto Wolff Said This Week section. Okay, guys. So Toto Wolff said that big teams won't take risks with young drivers, and hence he's pushing for 3-car teams for the top teams.
I'm so tired of this whole three-car teams I've been, reading about. But actually, it's such an egg-in-face moment for Toto Wolff and Mercedes because they are struggling to find a seat for their young driver, while Red Bull Racing and Ferrari have handed promotions to their young drivers. So we know about Gasly and Leclerc, of course. You guys get the reference.
I also find it strange that Mercedes has released Wehrlein from their program so he can sign on Red Bull Racing, but they've not released Ocon. So this means that even if Ocon misses out on racing in 2019, he would probably have the Mercedes promotion in 2020. Not a bad deal, huh, Kunal?
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. And, for a change, there are so many drivers that are making a comeback. They're taking a break, and that's actually a heartening change for the sport because, otherwise Formula One embodies this whole out of sight, out of mind spirit pretty much in everything they do.
The other thing Toto Wolff said was that the Formula One calendar should be limited to 15 or 16 races only, and that the sport should be more exclusive, and no.
Frankly, I dislike the sound of that. But I can totally imagine what I would be doing with those 5-6 free Sundays. I mean, I will finally have time to earn my flying license, guys. So,
frankly, as long as you're available in the week for the podcast, Kunal, I don't care what you do on your free Sundays.
And Toto Wolff said that Ferrari, Red Bull and Mercedes are in a crazy resource race and is looking forward to a budget cap and how it would be implemented by Liberty Media and the FIA. So, well, here's some proof that he speaks a lot of sense as well.
Listen, I never said that he doesn't speak sense. I mean, Toto Wolff. Just that a lot of things he says are very funny and very, foot in mouth kinds. And hence he has a section dedicated to him. And no, he does not sponsor this section yet. But Toto, in case you're listening.
Well, I'm going to repeat what Christian Horner said. And he spoke about Toto Wolff's checkbook. So we can probably make a reference to that as well. But anyway, before we go, after a 40-year self-imposed ban on official in-race betting, Formula One has now embraced it wholeheartedly. So they've announced a new official betting partner. And frankly, that's all I wanted to say because I don't really care about betting.
Yeah, I wonder if a certain Flavio is going to be the brand ambassador for Formula One betting. It's a pity then that Alonso's leaving, no?
Okay, thank you so much for listening, guys. We will be back next week before the Russian Grand Prix, and let's really hope that the championship battle remains entertaining all the way till Abu Dhabi. Bye-bye.
You can't control what's outside your home, but you can control what comes in. Because Clorox disinfecting wipes kill 99.9% of viruses and bacteria, including COVID-19 virus, when used as directed on hard, non-porous surfaces. So whether it's from dirty doorknobs, dirty shoes, or something else, outside germs won't stand a chance. When it counts, trust Clorox. Kill Pseudomonas, Salmonella, and influenza virus type A2. Kill SARS-CoV-2 on hard, non-porous surfaces. Use as directed.